Lloyd Baker just threatened to knock me off the stage. You going to take care of him, Angel? Thank you. Yeah, they're not used to. Next week I'll sit over there. That way I don't mess up the choir. So tonight and the next few weeks is going to be special. Pastor, thank you for allowing me this time. Let me give you a little bit of background. A couple months ago when we were preparing for our youth-led worship service, I broke the students up into small groups, and I had them do some study. We do that on a regular basis, but this particular opportunity, they dug into the Word of God, and they came up with some messages. Their task was to develop a message, come up with a theme, come up with a title, come up with scripture references, come up with everything that would revolve around that message, and then present it to their peers. So we did that at one point, and I took a look at everything that they had and everything that they turned in, and I asked them, I said, can I take these 4 messages, and use them? Like, well, yeah, sure. So I approached the pastor and asked if we could kind of do a series like that, and so over the next 4 weeks, you're going to hear some bare bones of what they put together, and then I've taken it and I've embellished that, and I've gotten a little bit deeper, and some of them I've gone a different direction with. But thank you to all of our students who have given me the opportunity to do this. So tonight we're going to be talking about distractions, and what an appropriate evening to discuss distractions with that big super dish, great big bowl, whatever that thing is called that's going on TV. It's probably starting right about now. Let me just take that distraction off the table for you. Patriots over the Eagles, 24-14. All right, so now that you know the outcome, you don't have to worry about it anymore, right? There are a number of people who have been distracted by that game tonight, and they are not here. There's a movie that I am fond of. It's a movie made by Pixar. Anybody seen the movie Up before? Came out about 10 years ago. Great movie. There's a man who wants to move his house, and so he fills his house up with balloons, inflates all those balloons, takes off, starts sailing in a direction where he wants to go, wants to move his house out into the country, out onto a cliffside. You know, it'd be a really short movie if the balloons inflated, if he sailed there, if he landed, and then he sat on the rocking chair out front and he was done. That'd be a real short movie, but that's not the way movie goes. This particular movie, there were a lot of twists and turns. There were a lot of different distractions that he had to encounter. There was a hyperactive Boy Scout that was there. There was a roadrunner type dodo bird that was running around all over the place. And then my favorite was the dog. You guys remember the dog? I still use this line in my house today. I just shortened it up a little bit. At one point, there's this dog that jumps up on him, and he says, well, the guy realizes that the dog can actually talk. And so the dog jumps on him and looks at him and says, I love my master. My master is good and smart. My master made me this collar so I could squirrel. Talk to people. And every now and then, like in our house, if we're talking about something and like the topic changes in a heartbeat, we'll just kind of shake our head and go, oh, squirrel. So tonight, my hope is that I don't end up chasing too many rabbits or squirrels, but we stay on topic. But, you know, just like that dog, it's easy to get distracted. There are days, most days, when I wake up and I decide, I say, okay, these are the things that I need to accomplish today. This is my list. These are the things that I want to do. And by the time my head hits the pillow at night, I wonder where the day is gone. You know, there's many things that I accomplished. There's many good things that I accomplished. But the question is, did I do what was necessary for that day? Or out of everything that I finished, was it just a series of distractions? You may have encountered the same thing in your life. You may end up with the same kind of distractions going on. You know, anything can be a distraction. Here at church, let's say you show up a little bit late, and so you're sitting in the wrong spot. It's not your particular, we can't say pew anymore. It's not your chair. You end up in the wrong chair, and now you're distracted because it's a different angle than what you're used to, or the people around you are a little bit different. Maybe there's some coughing going on. And you get distracted by somebody coughing, and so you're not paying attention to what Todd says anymore. Maybe this starts buzzing, or this starts going off, or you've got your Bible app on here, and he's not quite to the Bible yet, so let me go ahead and check Snapchat and Facebook and Twitter and everything else. Maybe you get distracted like that. Distractions can happen anywhere. I know that our news cycle is just a series of one giant distraction. It's the latest tidbit of truth that they want to trot out in front of you and twist and turn just to kind of describe the narrative that they have going on, to distract you from what he said, or she said. I told you this was going to happen, didn't I? I got tongue-tied up in the sound booth earlier. You know, the enemy is hard at work trying to keep you distracted. And so tonight we're going to talk about that. Tonight we are going to be in the book of Nehemiah. In keeping with our theme for this year, we're going to take a look at some Old Testament truths and bring it into our modern age. So the book of Nehemiah, we're going to be in chapter 6 tonight out of the book of Nehemiah. And if you're searching for that in your Bible, you're looking at 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra really tiny, and then you have Nehemiah. If you have a Bible app, touch Old Testament, Nehemiah, and then 6, and you're there pretty quick. Is that you, Warren? Okay. How do you do in the Bible drills? You're fast? So Nehemiah chapter 6, if you would, stand with me as we read out of Nehemiah. Nehemiah chapter 6, verses 1 through 4. Now, when it was reported to Sanballat, Tobiah, to Geshem the Arab, and to the rest of our enemies that I had rebuilt the wall, and that no breach remained in it, although at the time I had not set up the doors and the gates, Sanballat and Geshem sent a message to me, saying, "Come, let us meet together at Sephraim in the plain of Ono." But they were planning on doing me harm. So I sent messengers to them, saying, "I'm doing a great work, and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave and come down to you?" And they sent messages to me 4 more times in this manner, and I answered them in the same way. They were persistent in trying to distract Nehemiah from the work that he was doing. And he replied the same way every time. No, I can't. I'm focused. You will not pull me away. Thank you for standing. So the book of Nehemiah, I love the book of Nehemiah. If you have not read it, please do so. I encourage you to study it. There are so many things in here that you can glean. Leadership, servanthood, focus. There's so many things in here. It'll actually teach you how to deal with your enemies. It'll teach you how to deal with distractions. It teaches you all kinds of stuff. Nehemiah, lovely, wonderful book full of information. Now, if you know anything about Nehemiah, you know that Nehemiah has some enemies. He is called by God to go to Jerusalem and rebuild the walls. Now, it's been 100 years since the Israelites have returned from their exile. 100 years that Jerusalem has sat with no walls. 100 years that it has been open to invasion, open to people that could come in and just plunder it whenever they wanted to. And so now Nehemiah has the blessing of the Persian king. He has all of the resources at his command. He's traveled back down to Jerusalem, and the people are rebuilding the wall. And now when we get here into chapter 6, we find that the wall is complete. There's no breach. There's no hole left in it anymore. The only thing that is left to do is hang the doors, to hang the gates on the wall. And so you have everything around the city done except for the main entrances, except for the openings. And it's been a lot of work. It's been a long time for them to get to this place. They've had enemies come against them time and time and time again. You can take a look when they started building the wall, that they came up against them. You can look there in the middle that the enemies came up against them. And now, when they're almost finished, his enemies rise up again. and they try and distract him from completing things. So let me ask you this. Some of you have built houses. Some of you have patiently waited as your house came up out of the ground, as the land was prepared, as the walls were put in place, as the roof was put on, as everything inside, the drywall was done, the paint was done. We watched as this building rose up out of the ground, little by little, slowly but surely, until it was finished. But let me ask you this. If your house was completely done except for the front door and the back door, would you be comfortable living there? Would you be comfortable moving all your furniture in? Would you be comfortable putting your valuables in there? Would you be comfortable sleeping there at night with no front door, with no back door, with no way to secure your home? I would have to guess you'd probably say no. And so the people that live in Jerusalem are in the same boat. They've gotten close. They've got the walls up, but the gates are not yet hung. They're not yet secure. It would be real easy for their enemies just to ride right through the front gate. No way to close it, no way to keep them out. Not only that, they could choose from any number of gates around Jerusalem. So they're close, but they're not yet done. Nehemiah can see the finish line. He knows that they're almost there. Almost there. It's been a long road. It's been hard for them to do, and they're almost there, and he gets an invitation from his enemies. Come, join us. Let's meet on the plain of Ono. Now, where they're requesting him to meet, it's about 25 miles northwest of Jerusalem, close to where we would call modern-day Tel Aviv. And so they're calling him to travel 25 miles outside of his city. But here's the important thing to realize. They're calling him to travel further away from where he's safe and secure and closer to Samaria, which is where Sanballat's from. And so they're bringing him out of the relative security of the people that he knows and the place that he's been working on to travel to Ono, to travel to his enemy's front door. He says, no, this smells fishy. There's no way I'm going to do that. Because they mean to do me harm. Over and over again, if you read through the book of Nehemiah, you're going to see different times where they've risen up against him, where they have tried to tear him down, where they've tried to disrupt the things that are going on. Even the people, even the Israelites that are living out in the countryside have come to him and they've said, they're going to attack you. They're going to try and kill you. These people are bad dudes. They're going to come and get you. So why would he leave the safety and security that he's in, travel across enemy territory to meet with people who time and time and time again have said, we don't want you around? And so he replies, no, I am doing a great work. You will not distract me. You know, take a look at modern day politics. It's in the news a lot right now, but think about this. Think about this. Think about our political system. The first thing that they do is they ridicule the other side. Oh, if a fox jumped on that wall, it would fall down. You can't do anything right. Anything that you do, nothing's going to work. They ridicule the other side. And when that doesn't work, they try and tear it from within. They start pointing fingers. They get people to infight within their party. If you want to do that, I'm not going to vote for that. I'm not going to do that. And when that doesn't work, then they come out and they say, well, we're going to make some concessions. We'd like to get together and talk. We'd like to talk about how we can move forward together in a bipartisan agreement to make this happen. Sanballat has sent him a letter saying, come on, we started off on a bad foot. We started off, I really didn't like you, and yeah, maybe we tried to kill you a little bit, but we're past that now. Let's get together. Let's talk about how we can move forward together and how Jerusalem and the surrounding communities can build up and enjoy prosperity and growth. Come on. It sounds like a great idea because talking things out is always going to be better than fighting things out. Nehemiah says, no. Not only do I know what you have planned for me, I am doing God's work. So regardless of how good the fruit looks, I am doing God's work, and I cannot come down. It will not stop on account of you. It will not stop on account of me being disobedient to what God has put in front of me. No. And they send him another letter, and he replies, no. And they send him another letter, and he replies, no. How many times, I have to ask you folks, how many times will you respond with a no when it sounds like it's a good idea? Sounds good. But is it really? And so they try to distract him over and over and over again. So not only was Nehemiah being distracted, or at least they're trying to distract him by the good idea and the good opportunity that he had. If you take a look further down in Nehemiah chapter 6, there we'll see that when that doesn't work, they try and distract him with gossip. They try and distract him with gossip. Verse 5, then Sanballat sent a servant to me in the same manner, a fifth time, with an open letter in his hand, and in it was written, it is reported among the nations that you and the Jews are planning to rebel, that you're rebuilding the wall, and you are to be their king. According to these reports, you have appointed prophets to proclaim in Jerusalem concerning you, a king is in Judah. And now it will be reported to the king, the Persian king, so come, let us take counsel together. So he didn't say yes right away. He didn't come the first 4 times that they asked him to come to a meeting. Now they're trying to blackmail him. Now they've sent an open letter. Consider this. Communication back then used to be on a scroll, used to be something that was folded up. You had a wax seal. You'd put that signet on there. And now there was an assurance that it went from one person to another without it being open, without it being read by anybody who didn't need to know what was in the letter. And so the first 4 times, he gets a letter between him and Sanballat. This time is different. The 5th time, it's an open letter. Anybody along the way, any one of those messengers, anybody that handled that, yeah, really? Wow. Have you seen this? Have you read this? Have you seen this? Think about it. Anybody along the way could have read the accusations that were now thrown against Nehemiah. And even worse than that, who here has ever played the telephone game? We did it down in Children's Church a couple weeks ago. We had all the kids sit in a circle. But Noah, you remember this? What did it start off with? What was the first thing that you asked them to say? You don't even remember? Mary and Joseph went to Bethlehem. That's what he said to the very first child. Okay, Mary and Joseph went to Bethlehem, and they had to go all the way around the circle, and then we checked with the last person. And it ended up with something like, cheesy popcorn is great. So not only are a whole bunch of people reading this open letter, now when I share it with Robin, or when I share it over here with Bruce, or when I share it back here with Noah, she hears something different than he hears, and he shares it with somebody else who hears something different. So now it's not just a regular accusation that the walls are being rebuilt and you're going to be king. Now it's we're going to take an army, we're going to invade Persia, we're going to overthrow Artaxerxes, and he's going to be like king over everything. And so it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. They couldn't have a meeting face to face. He turned them down because he was doing God's work. So now they're throwing out lies and accusations and slander. They're trying to sack the quarterback. They're trying to get everybody around him to turn against him. I mean, think about it. The people that he's been working with, the folks that he's been leading, are now going to hear all of this other stuff. They're going to begin to wonder. They're going to begin to think, well, maybe that's his real reason for being here. Maybe he came back because he wants to be king. Maybe, maybe, maybe. How does Nehemiah respond? He sends a letter back to Sanballat. Such things as you are saying have not been done. You're inventing them from your own mind. So let me rephrase that in a different kind of vernacular. You're insane. That's the letter he sends back. And that's it. But here's the key. He turns first and foremost and he prays. He prays. He prays to God. God, strengthen my hands. Nehemiah is a discerning man. He realizes what they're trying to do. And so he tells them no 4 times. And now, instead of responding, instead of getting on Twitter and trying to tell everybody how great a person he is, instead of trying to spin the cycle, instead of going out in front of the news cameras and saying, well, this and that, and they said this, and I said that, and everything else, no. He responds with a very simple letter, you're insane. And he prays to God, and he continues along the direction, along the path that God has set before him. He doesn't get distracted. As human beings, it's very easy for us to get our emotions in an uproar, for us to get distracted when things like that happen, when somebody calls us a name, when somebody calls us out, when somebody says, you know, what you're doing just is wrong. You shouldn't do it like that. You should do it this way. We get emotionally invested in the way that we're doing it. And so when somebody tells us we're wrong, we don't like to hear that. We go on the attack. We try and get everybody on our side. Not Nehemiah. Because if he had done that, it would have distracted, it would have taken away from everything that he had done so far. It would have taken away from his leadership, it would have taken away from all of the work that they had done on the wall. It would have taken the people away who were serving God because they were following a man who was serving God. So Nehemiah, again, is not distracted by gossip. He's not distracted by the false accusations. He's not distracted by diverting his energy to clean everything up. And folks, at the end of the day, when you're faced with gossip, honestly, all you can do is bow to the Lord and pray and know that your character and your past will carry you through it. But on the flip side of that, let us not be the one who's in that telephone chain who spreads rumors and spreads gossip and affects people that way. Gossip can distract. Lastly, fear of the future can be a huge distraction. And here towards the end of chapter 6, we see that someone is trying to come along and make Nehemiah afraid of what is to come. He stops by a house. Chapter 6, verse 10. When I entered the house of Shemaiah, son of Deliah, who was confined at home, he said, let us meet together in the house of God, within the temple, and then let us close the doors of the temple, for they are coming to kill you tonight. Nehemiah responds, should a man like me flee? And could one such as I go into the temple just to save his life? I will not go in. I will not go in. So he goes to visit someone who is proclaimed to be a prophet. Goes to visit this man. More than likely, somebody said, hey, he's got news for you. You should go talk to him. He's talking about you. He knows something. You need to go visit him and see what he knows. And so Nehemiah goes and he visits this man. And he tells him, your life will be taken tonight. Let's go to the temple, close the doors. We'll be safe inside the temple. They won't go in there. They can't go in there if we lock the doors. You'll be safe. Anybody have any idea what a problem with that is? Why that's a problem? The priests were the only ones allowed in the temple. Unless you had taken someone's life and you were seeking sanctuary. Not because you kind of heard through the grapevine that somebody might be coming to do you harm, and so we're going to hang out in the temple and lock the doors so that I can protect myself. There was only two reasons. Priests go in, or if you were running because you had committed a crime and you wanted the opportunity to go before a judge and talk it out and declare either your innocence or your guilt. There's only two reasons. And so this man tells him, let's go to the temple. Let's hide ourselves in the temple. The two of us, let's both go in. And Nehemiah says, no, I can't do it because you're not a prophet. You're a liar. You're trying to get me in there. You're trying to get me to look bad in front of everybody else. You're trying to get me to give up everything I believe in, to give up the values that I have, to give up the belief in God that I have, to give up the trust that I have placed in my God. You're trying to get me to give all of that up because now I'm scared for the future. I won't do it. The future is unknown to each and every one of us. It's quite possible that tonight your life may be demanded of you. Mine as well. The future is unknown to each and every one of us. And I'm going to take just a second and direct this at our students. Be strong in the Lord. Because while we as adults have careers, have jobs, and have families, and have houses, have a number of different things, you are on the cusp of having to do that on your own, having to make those life choices on your own, of having to decide which college to go to, having to figure out, do I date this person or not date this person? What does my future look like? What kind of career do I have? Where am I going to go? Am I going to move out of town? Am I going to stay here? Am I going to live in my parents' basement? What am I going to do? And so your future, out of anybody else's in here, is so uncertain. And yet I know God holds you in the palm of his hand. And it'll be okay. Nehemiah knew that as well. He wasn't afraid. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He stood up and said, I am not that man. And so he wasn't distracted by someone who was lying to him, someone who was more than likely being paid to try and get him to sell himself out. So rumors couldn't distract him. Low-hanging fruit couldn't distract him. Fear of the future couldn't distract him. So, folks, my question to you is, what are you being distracted by? Are you following the path that God has set before you? Are you devoting yourself to study and prayer? Are you witnessing? Are you leading those people that you know are not Christians? Are you leading them to the Lord? Are you sharing that faith that you have, the spirit that's inside you? Are you sharing that with other people? And if you're not, why not? What is distracting you from what Jesus has called us to do? Is it fear? I pray that it's not. I pray that it's not, because he is the one who holds us in his hand. Be anxious for nothing, but in prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to the Lord. He will guide